And how to plan to kidnap and sexually abuse a Xenia kindergartner. Police said a guy admitted that that's what he was going to do. He also admitted having child porn. And he told police he put a drug on some candy to entice the child. But investigators, in just the last 10 minutes, told our I-team they have not been able to verify whether the candy he had drugs in it. Reed Duran is who we're talking about. He is in the Greene County Jail. He's been there since Monday night. Xenia police said he had no connection to St. Bridget Catholic School, but Monday he showed up for the school's open house, pretending to be a parent. The principal noticed something wrong, stepped in and called police before Duran was able to talk or touch any children. The I-team's John Bedell uncovered new information today, including the evidence investigators found when they searched Duran's apartment.
In new court documents the I-team got a hold of, Greene County prosecutors say just the allegations against Reed Duran and the potential threat to the public in this case are so serious he should not be let out of jail before his trial. We want to warn you, some of the details we've uncovered in these court filings are disturbing.
Now hearing that, it's like, whoa, dang, that's, you never know.
For Rodney Armstrong, the accusations against his neighbor, Reed Duran, are hard to hear. Investigators say he showed up to St. Bridget's Monday night claiming to be the dad of a kindergartner there. New court documents the I-team got said he even identified the 5-year-old girl by name after seeing the class picture outside their room, and he was in the same classroom as the girl. St. Bridget's principal told me Wednesday Duran even sat at the desk with her name on it. But before anything else could happen, the principal noticed something was wrong, confronted Duran with the girl's actual parents, and called police, who arrested Duran.
The principal was very quick, is my understanding, in recognizing that there was an issue and addressing it. So I absolutely think that he could have prevented something very bad from happening.
New court documents are showing exactly what Duran said he wanted to do. Investigators wrote Duran stated he planned on removing the child from the school and wanted to perform sexual acts on the child, and then said he planned to do that by drugging her with a tranquilizer-laced starburst and removing the child from the school once she passed out. After he was arrested, police said Duran admitted to having child porn on his computer. Xenia police confirmed to the I-team they searched Duran's apartment in Fairborn. How long were they here last night?
Forever, like 4 hours. Like they was just posted all around here, sitting in cars, on corners, everywhere.
Armstrong told me he watched the raid at his neighbor's apartment Tuesday night. In court documents, investigators said they found items in 2 searches which could lead to additional felony charges involving child porn. Right now, Duran is only accused of attempted kidnapping, felonious assault for trying to stab a Xenia officer with a pen in an interview room, and for trying to escape that interview room. Back in Fairborn, given the allegations, Armstrong says he's relieved his neighbor is now in jail.
I'm glad they got him, though. And that's it. That's it.
Duran's next court hearing is Monday here in Xenia Municipal Court. Xenia police told me they'll present this case to a grand jury right across the street next Wednesday. We'll let you know whether he's indicted. In Xenia for the I-team, I'm John Bedell, News.